911 emergency.
I think I need to report a break-in and a murder. My wife is on the floor, bloody, stiff, not moving.
The wife of a Las Vegas firefighter would be found bludgeoned to death in her home by her own daughter. Who would do such a horrific thing? Hello, true crimeers. This is the case of Shauna Tiaffay. Viewer discretion is advised. Shauna was born on March 13th, 1966 in Salt Lake City, Utah. In 1978, her family moved to Pennsylvania, and then a couple of years after that, they picked up and moved to Virginia. Virginia is where she would spend the better chunk of her young life. That's where she graduated from high school. She was a cheerleader in high school, and so she was described as a really bubbly, outgoing, very vivacious person, and that would continue on later in her adult life. She was just a super likable, energetic, just big personality that everybody loved. She was incredibly popular, and she had just a mountain of friends. In 1994, around the age of 28 or so, she would actually move to Las Vegas, Nevada. She got a job selling cosmetics at Saks Fifth Avenue and then also at Neiman Marcus. Several years after that, she would change her, job focus, and she would become a cocktail waitress. First at the Fiesta Casino, and then once the Palms Casino opened, she would end up getting a job there, which is where she worked until her death. She was said to be the type of person whose smile could just light up a room, and it was that smile that, caught the eye of a man by the name of George Tiaffay. He met her while he was doing valet work at the same casino. The two of them started to date, and then eventually they got pregnant. So they had a little baby, a daughter named Madison, and then shortly after that, they got married. They were married on March 16th, 2006. At 9:13 a.m. on September 29th, 2012, 911 would get a call.
911 emergency.
I think I need to report a break-in and a murder. My wife is on the floor, bloody, stiff, not moving.
George Tiaffay, now a Las Vegas firefighter, called 911 to report that his wife was dead. She was bloodied and bludgeoned on the ground of her townhome. He had walked into the townhouse with their daughter Madison, and Madison was actually the first person to see, unfortunately, her mother's body, which is something no child should ever have to see. The 46-year-old mother was lying on her back, and detectives would describe it as she was laying very, stiff, and that she appeared almost posed. They described her, the way she appeared to look like a Barbie doll still in its package. Just kind of rigid. Several minutes after the 911 call, police arrived at the Willowbrook apartments where she lived. And they, quickly determined that this was obviously a murder. She had been bludgeoned to death by something. She was still wearing her cocktail waitress uniform. Even her, fishnet stockings were on, and they appeared to be kind of ripped. But otherwise, all of her clothing was still on, and none of it appeared to be disturbed other than the ripped stockings. So they really didn't think that she was sexually assaulted at all. Her blonde hair appeared to be nearly all red because it was saturated with her blood. Her head had just so many injuries. It appeared that she had been struck by something that looked to them like some kind of hammer. But there was no murder weapon anywhere in the townhouse. Most of her fingers were also broken, because it appeared that she had tried to fight off the initial attack and got struck with the item in her hands. Her fingernails had broken off, and they were kind of all over the floor. They also found her teeth kind of scattered around the floor. That's how hard she was hit. The CSI people also found wood splinters around her body, and that's pretty much why they determined that she was likely struck by a hammer, and that it was done so forcefully that it literally broke the hammer, which is not something that's easy to do. So this attack had to be, just extremely brutal. So certainly someone would have to have seen something, or at the very least heard something. Not really. They interviewed neighbors in the community, and really no one heard anything except for her direct next door neighbor, where there was a shared wall. She said that at some point in the morning she heard a loud thud or two. But honestly, to her, it sounded just like, Shauna had come home and kind of slammed the door a little too loud. No one saw anything suspicious or anyone suspicious. No one, running from the house. Nothing of the sort. They found, expensive items in the home that were small enough to be stolen, but weren't. They found her wallet, which had, cash and credit cards. It was missing her ID. But nothing like that was stolen, but they did notice that her wedding ring was stolen, as well as her cell phone. But those two items alone aren't that's all they took? Those are two very kind of random things, with other things in the house that could have been taken. Maybe it was just a robbery gone wrong. Maybe Shauna walked in at the beginning stages of a robbery, and the person, he or she, freaked out and just attacked her and stole just her wedding ring and cell phone, whatever he could grab, and took off. Possibility. But investigators were working under the theory that Shauna was actually targeted, and she was killed for a reason. That, this was probably planned. But by who? Obviously, it goes without saying, the very first suspect is definitely the husband. So they look into him immediately. He is the one to have recalled in to 911 to report her murder, and a lot of the times the murderer themselves will call 911 to kind of take some of the eyes off of them, because they think, well, why would anyone who killed someone report the murder? Why would they not, just flee? George Tiaffay is a pillar of the community. He is a well-respected and beloved firefighter. He previously was in the military. He was just an all-around perceived good guy. His firefighter coworkers all said he was wonderful. He never caused any problems. He never really seemed to have any anger issues. Everything just seemed very chill with George. By all accounts, George and Shauna had a relatively good marriage. Everyone looked at them as a happy couple. However, they had recently hit a bit of a rough patch where they agreed to separate. And at one point, George apparently filed for divorce. But according to George, they worked things out and he rescinded the divorce procedure. This is what prompted Shauna to kind of move out on her own and get her own townhouse. So, does George have an alibi? Well, yeah, absolutely. He spent virtually the entire night going into the very early morning when Shauna would have been killed at work at the fire station, and they did calls, and with CCTV footage and all of the firefighters, giving witness statements, they all said, yep, he was there with us all night long. Then he went to a grocery store to pick up a few items, and police confirmed with receipts and CCTV footage that he did in fact go to the grocery store. Then he went to pick up their daughter from his mother's house because Shauna was working, he was working, and the mother and their daughter both confirmed, yep, exactly what happened. So it would have been literally impossible. There's no chance in hell that he could have committed this murder. So in this case, the husband didn't do it. So, police then check Shauna's work. They want to interview coworkers. They want to see if maybe she had any stalkers or any upset customers in the past. They all said, not really. She was really well loved here. You know, she was super happy and she never caused problems. And, you know, she was a very beautiful woman, but there wasn't any known stalkers. However, she did have a boyfriend. So police look into this boyfriend, this person she's having an affair with. He says, well, our affair is primarily sexual in nature. He wasn't aware if George knew or not. But could he have done this? Also no. CCTV footage from the casino and plenty of witness statements would absolutely verify that he was at work. No possible way he could have done this. So, while at the Palms Casino, they check camera footage. They see that Shauna clocked out the morning of September 29th at exactly 3:01 a.m. There is plenty of footage of her clocking out. There's footage of her walking down the hall. Then, like at 3:02-ish a.m., they have her leaving the building and walking towards the parking lot to her car. And everything seems hunky-dory. She is seen carrying like a kind of like a pink-colored Victoria's Secret bag. And no one is seen following her or stalking her. No one is around her, really, when she goes to the parking lot. She does not appear to be distressed. Everything seems fine. So what the hell? Was this a random killing? Was this a stranger killing? It sure looked like it at this point, which really sucks because those are like the worst ones to investigate. Those are super hard to solve when there's no connection to anyone. She lives specifically in like the Summerlin area of Las Vegas, and this was like I've actually been there before. It's a super like chill like part of Vegas. It's very quiet, very peaceful. It's not considered an area that has any type of issues with crime, certainly not murders. There wasn't any break-ins reported in the area at that time. So it's just, what happened? So police go back to the neighbor who heard the thud. And they question, like, do you know exactly when that happened? And she said, well, I awoke because my dog started barking at a noise, and then I heard a thud, and then I just looked at the clock, and it just happened to be a little after 3:30 in the morning. But the neighbor says there was no screaming, there was no sounds of like an altercation taking place, so she didn't think anything of it. She just thought Shauna was coming home, and then the neighbor just went back to bed. Another neighbor would come to police to say that they walked out of their home at about 7 o'clock in the morning, and they noticed that Shauna's garage door was open. And the garage door was still open when her body was found at the townhouse. So what police believe is that the killer left through the garage, wasn't able to close it. So that actually just helped narrow their window of time between now, because what the neighbor heard, about 3:30 in the morning to about 7 a.m. is when this murder took place. Okay, so was there anything else useful at the crime scene? Not really. Pretty much all of the DNA left behind was Shauna's. They didn't find any other DNA. They found plenty of fingerprints, but they all pretty much either matched Shauna or just like the normal people in her life. They didn't like find any fingerprints that matched like any criminals or anything like that. So again, pretty much all the physical evidence just shows nothing. Then investigators realize something is missing other than, her cell phone and wedding ring. The pink bag that she was seen carrying out of her work. That's nowhere to be found either. And then a person comes forward to police that somewhere in the neighborhood, this is like, we're talking, 1,000, 2,000 feet away from where she lived, along this like dirt path, a woman who was jogging found a whole bunch of items just sort of scattered along the dirt path. And that was a cell phone. There was also like a makeup kit, a hairbrush, and just like various little items, and also an ID. The ID belonged to Shauna. The cell phone was Shauna's. So what this tells police is that the person who killed Shauna likely fled all the way on foot, that there was no car involved, because of just sort of the distance it was from the home. The pink bag itself was not found. They do believe that there was Shauna's tip money inside the bag, and so they probably just took that. At this point, police decide to tell media some of the details about the murder so they can put it out to see if there could, possibly be any tips that come in. And that's when they get a humongous, massive break. And this basically opens the whole thing. A man by the name of Big Will would come forward to police to report something very, very concerning. Big Will, who is a former convict, he tells police, I think I know who killed her. So Big Will worked as sort of like a counselor of sorts. He would speak to convicts who are recently released from prison and kind of help guide them back into society. One of these particular prisoners, by the name of, his code name or street name, was Greyhound, and he wasn't sure of his exact, actual name. Greyhound apparently told Big Will that he had just killed a woman with a hammer, and that when he was using the hammer broke. The big key for police is they never told the media that the murder weapon was a hammer, and they certainly never told anyone that the murder weapon likely broke. So they knew they had their guy in some way, shape, or form. According to Big Will, Greyhound is a little kooky, a little cuckoo, kind of possibly mentally unwell, or very likely mentally unwell. Well, this all sounds great, but police are like, well, Big Will is telling us this story. Is he just covering his tracks by trying to pin this on someone else? I mean, he is a former convict. He was in prison for assault. Could he have done it? Well, he agreed to take a polygraph test, and they grilled him, and he passed the test with absolutely flying colors, and they couldn't establish any connection between him and the Tiaffays. So he offers to take police to the normal hangout spot of Greyhound, which is a little convenience store gas station, where he would typically buy his booze, and kind of just hang out there, because Greyhound essentially is a homeless man. So when police go to this gas station, they go to during the time frame when Big Will said that he's typically there. Lo and behold, there he is. They find Greyhound. They bring him in for questioning. They do clear out his pockets, and he does have a lot of marijuana on him. They also find his ID, and they find out Greyhound's actual name, and his name is Noel Stevens. He does come off as a little strange, a little wonky, kind of almost like paranoid to a degree, a bit creepy, a bit unstable. But when they confront him about this murder, he says, I didn't kill anyone. They do ask him, hey, how do you purchase you're homeless, you don't have a job, so how do you purchase this booze and this marijuana you have on you? Where do you get the money for that? He says, well, he does odd jobs for a very good friend of his. Police ask him, well, what's your friend's name? Well, he says his name is George. Police say, George who? He says, George Tiaffay. He's like a really good friend of mine. He even says, yeah, I know Shauna. We met many times. I know their daughter, and I taught their daughter how to ride a skateboard. And yeah, he's just like part of the family, the Tiaffay family. But he still denies even knowing that Shauna was even dead, let alone killing her. They don't have enough evidence to charge him with murder, but they do have the marijuana on him, which is a large quantity, and so they just use that as an excuse to book him so that he can't flee, since he doesn't have an actual home and they don't know where he lives. So they find out that Noel was actually arrested 2 weeks prior. Where was he arrested? Just outside the Palms Casino, where Shauna works. He was caught because he was lurking around the premises. He looked like he was sneaking, doing something nefarious. So police kind of pull him to the side, and he's carrying a white bag. In that bag, he has, well, a mask, gloves, a knife, and a hammer. So now they believe that he was actually planning on killing Shauna 2 weeks prior to her body being found. But he was caught, and police confiscated all of the items in that bag. He was released shortly after he was bailed out. So it all seems a little sketch. Noel is off his rocker. He's too mentally unbalanced to plan and organize this kind of murder on his own. So they think, well, someone had to have helped him. Someone would have had to have helped him plan this. Noel takes police to his tent where he lives in the middle of nowhere, the desert, basically. And in his tent, they find a little barcode. And that barcode matches a hammer that would be sold at Lowe's. Police use the barcode. They're able to trace when this particular hammer was purchased. They find the CCTV footage, and they see Noel buying this hammer. Also at his campsite, they find some kind of earth that looks like it had been sort of dug up recently. They kind of dig it up, and they find a hammer. A broken hammer. At that, Then, a couple 100 feet away from the tent, they find a pair of jeans. Those jeans have blood all over them. The blood was tested, and it was confirmed to be a 100% match to that of Shauna Tiaffay. They also swab the insides of the jeans, and they do collect DNA. That DNA belongs to Noel Stevens. So he was wearing the jeans that had Shauna's blood all over them. This pretty much guarantees that Noel Stevens is in fact the actual physical murderer of Shauna Tiaffay. But why? Simply because he's mentally unstable? Maybe, I guess. He didn't know her, so whatever reasons he may have had, possibly. But he didn't have a motive. Not really. But someone does have a motive. His good friend, George Tiaffay. Like I said, Shauna moved out on her own after they agreed to separate. Now she has herself a new boyfriend. It sounds like she wanted the divorce that George had initially filed, but stopped. So was Shauna then also planning to take full custody of their daughter? Did he hire Noel to kill Shauna because he didn't want any other man to have her? Certainly possible. So police look into the phone records of both Noel and George. Lo and behold, they find over 80 phone calls between the two men over the course of the month of September. 80. Over 80. There really wasn't any text messages exchanged, but a lot of freaking phone calls. 2 weeks before Shauna's eventual murder, there was a spike in phone call activity. Well, this was right around the time when he had been caught with the bag of murder tools, the hammer and the knife, outside of Shauna's work. And then there was another spike in phone calls right before Shauna's actual murder. Police also find out that George is the one to have bailed Noel out of jail when he was arrested for that bag of murder tools. Police would go to George's family. They would talk to his mom, his sisters, to find out what they can about George. And they kind of hint that they're considering him a possible suspect in a murder for hire thing. They're like, what the no, he didn't do any of that. Are you crazy? And so police leave. And then not too soon after they leave, the meeting with the mom and the sister, police gets alerted that George has just tried to end his own life. How did he do it? He drove over 70 miles per hour into a concrete wall. Just obliterated the front of his vehicle, and he did not die. Nope. As a matter of fact, he was very bloody and he had some superficial wounds, but he was actually okay. He didn't have any broken bones or anything, so he really sucked at doing it. He failed miserably. So this prompts police to arrest him once he's, released from the hospital. But of course, he's not going to talk, and he's certainly continuing to deny he had any involvement in his wife's murder. So police then go back to Noel, and they say to him, along with the DA, listen, we will not pursue the death penalty in your case if you give us more information on George's involvement. And so eventually, after, kind of days of not wanting to rat anyone out or even himself admit he did the murder, he finally says, okay, I did it, and here's George's involvement. He tells police how George asked him to kill his wife. He also tells police that George was with him when he purchases the hammer, the knife, the mask, the gloves. So he knows the exact days and times they did these purchases. So police go and verify, and they have plenty of CCTV footage of George and Noel doing a little shopping spree, purchasing the hammer once, and then they find another video of them purchasing a hammer again. You see them kind of just picking out the right hammer for the job, and yeah, they're leaving the store smiling. They have images of Noel checking out at the register. It's pretty clear that George helped him buy the murder weapon. Police would discover that the tipping point for George was a text that Shauna had sent him shortly before the likely first attempt that Noel was going to do to kill her. Basically, she sent him a text saying, listen, we agreed to separate, and I think we need to keep it that way. I think we need to just end this. And so George didn't like that. He really freaked out, and he again thought that, well, she's going to take away my kid, possibly, full time, take her away from me, and I'm not going to have that. So literally immediately after she sends that text, he makes 11 phone calls in a row to Noel because he wasn't answering. 11 calls, and then eventually, they make more calls and more calls over the next few days, and we know the rest. Apparently, the signal that Noel was to give to George that the murder was done was that the garage door was going to be open. So when George pulled into the driveway that morning, he saw the garage door was open. What does he do? Well, he knows that means that his wife is murdered inside the townhouse. He knows that she was killed with a hammer, so it was going to be bloody and a horrific thing to see. So what he does is he sends in his 8-year-old daughter first to see exactly what her mother looked like. And she saw a very traumatizing image, something that will be burned into her memory forever, and it will traumatize her for the rest of her life. And he did that. Yeah. Not only did he organize taking away her mother, he made her see her. Yeah. So basically what Noel says happened is that George gave him the keys because George made a copy of her key. And so what he did was he opened the townhouse door. He then relocked it. He then hid in one of her bathrooms and just waited for her to come home. He heard her enter the house. And then a few moments later, he sees that she's in the living room. So he basically kind of bursts out, doesn't say anything, and he just begins to wail on her with a hammer. And he says that she screamed the word, "Why?" But he didn't answer, and he just kept hitting her until the hammer broke, and then he just picked up the pieces of the hammer and left her just bloodied on the ground, and he fled. He stole her pink bag, and then kind of just threw out some of the random items, but then just took whatever little amount of cash she had from tips inside the bag. And he took the wedding ring as well. I believe they recovered it, but I don't know exactly where. Police also find out one more little piece of information. George Tiaffay purchased himself a gun. Not before the murder, after. And he was supposed to meet Noel after the day after the murder. But that happens to be the day that police got to him, to Noel, at the gas station and brought him in for questioning. So what they believed was that George purchased the gun to shoot and kill Noel to cover his tracks. On January 7th, 2013, Noel Stevens would plead guilty to the murder of Shauna Tiafay, and he would be sentenced to 42 years to life. George Tiaffay's trial starts in October of 2015. It's a pretty lengthy trial. They had a lot to prove, but they had enough, and the jury found him guilty of conspiracy to commit murder, and he was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Good. Honestly, if it wasn't for that Big Will individual, this case possibly may not have been solved, at least not as quickly as it was. They could have been waiting a really long time to find out the information that they had to get. They may never have found the campsite with the jeans and the hammer and all of that. So thank goodness he came forward. He was a stand-up citizen who did the right thing. That's awesome. But also not only physical forensics, like testing the genes and all that, but the phone forensics, basically, that was huge because they could establish the connection between the two men and the plotting of the murder that way. People need to realize that nowadays technology with cell phones and GPS and our smartwatches and everything that's on us leaves a trace of you. You're always being tracked. They can always find out nowadays where you are and where you were in the past. And forensics is so advanced that the tiniest little drop of blood or someone leaving skin cell DNA on the inside of jeans can seal the deal to get you caught and arrested and put in prison forever. So, hey, maybe just don't murder. And the worst part of all of it is this crappy man made his 8-year-old daughter see her mother bludgeoned and bloody and dead. That's just... He deserves life in prison without parole and then some for that. But that is it for this case. I hope you found it interesting. As usual, I have plenty more cases for you to go through here on YouTube. I have also added a plethora of compilation videos over the past couple of weeks from my TikTok videos because my TikTok account is really close to being permanently banned again. I don't want to lose all those videos, so now they're over here, so you got plenty of stuff to watch, like hundreds and hundreds of cases in that regard. So please give me a like and a comment on this video. Please subscribe if you love true crime. That's what I do. Also, while you're here, please follow me on Facebook and Twitter. All of that information can be found in the description below and in my link tree. Next, if you have a case you would like me to cover, please email me. My email is listed below. Go to my link tree first, check my crimerer case list. Make sure the name that you want me to cover isn't already on there. If it is, please don't email me. It's already there. I pick my cases at random. So it'll happen when it happens. If you don't see the name, just email me real quick, the name, when it happened, and where it happened, and that's all I need. Next, if you would like to support me in any way, we do sell merch. We sell t-shirts and hoodies and wine glass and other little things. So that is also linked below. We do ship internationally anywhere in the world. Adam, who makes my merch himself, will ship it to you anywhere in the world. So, yeah. And lastly, if you are on Discord and you want to join my Discord server, it's also linked in the link tree below. Please be over the age of 18, otherwise you will be given the old boot skis from the Discord skis. Nope, don't say it like that. All right, true crime-a-roonies, that is it for this video. So, until next time, I'll leave you with this. I'm trying to think of something profound. I have nothing. I have nothing. Wait, don't leave. Hold on. No, I got. Okay.